Hey everyone, Jason Morian, editor of Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Got a little something different for you today. I connected with the folks at Teletrac Navman to walk through their new TN360 platform and dive into some of the AI offerings. Now, of course, when you get me talking about some of this technology stuff, I will talk for a while. So we actually talked for over an hour. Mercifully, I've cut the videos down in 2 videos for you. The first here will set up the platform, give you a nice overview, and give you a look at those real-time telematics use cases that you can check out. The second video then will detail some of the AI functionality and answer the question, can you ask a computer about your fleet, right? Can you just ask it a question? Of course, the answer is yes, and it's very cool. So spoiler alert, but you can check that one out, or I'll put the link down here and you can jump right to it. All right, enjoy.
So what we're seeing here is as a user logs in, the first screen they take them to is the home screen. Here in the home screen is really just to give you a very quick glimpse of what's going on with your fleet, right? If you expect your fleet to be at full capacity, everybody's running, then this should be, all of your vehicles or all of your assets should be in active state. None should be in the inactive state. If you expect them all to be out and running, or you're able to dig in and just see with the inactive ones, which ones are they, and I got to dig into why, right? I want to see the active ones. I can interact with those. I can also do that with my drivers, who's on duty, who's off duty, and also if there's any vehicles that are setting off any alerts, whether it's a camera alert or any other type of alert that I've told it to be notified of, you'll see the number of alerts that are here waiting for you to look at. There's something you got to pay attention to now.
Does that include like maintenance, fault codes, anything like that?
Anything like that. The other piece that we give you here is if we can switch over to the camera tab and a quick glance at the cameras. The cameras are taking snapshots periodically throughout the day and pulling up the snapshots here so you can quickly glance at what's been viewed.
How often are they doing the snapshots?
It's customizable. So as if we go back to the dashboard, the next screen that you're going to want to live in is our tracking screen. Now, what I'm going to show you is really all the different data points and real-time elements that are being processed and shown to you easily through the UI. But just to keep in mind that as we're talking about these different data points, this is all data that's actually also being pushed out to the analytics engine. That we're going to see the power of it, towards later on in the demo. So from here, you have your full list of assets that are in your platform or in your fleet that you can see there on the map or on the grid. What we give you the ability to do now is actually dig into it and see what's actually going on within the fleet. So if we look at and we click on a vehicle, see this vehicle is actually on the road right now. We can deploy a virtual drone and start following the vehicle instantly. Where the minute it captures it and the device has been configured, it'll start following it in real time, sort of like the Uber technology or any with those ride sharing apps. So now you have a live stream feed of the location data of that truck going down the road. Exactly where it's at on the map is where it's at right now in real life.
But how are you getting the satellite images? They update that quick. I didn't think you look at like Google Earth or something. That's not updating
Oh,
every second like this,
no,
right?
no, no, exactly. So the satellite image is just a map layer that we put on top of it from Google.
Well, see, and I guess that's the other. So then you look at it, and it's kind of. I was just kind of getting an idea for like how real time this is, and there was like some instances where it was like passing through a vehicle image or whatever, but everything's moving so quickly that the images aren't like that
Right.
one did the lane change really quick, but there's a move you probably don't want it to make, right?
Right. So the the satellite image isn't real time. It's an image that we grab from Google. Well, they take them periodically. Right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
That makes
what's
right.
what's
That
what's
makes
real
sense.
time is the vehicle activity and where it's going.
Okay, right. But I was looking at like, holy smokes, is my driver pulling off those maneuvers?
No.
Because that's insane. Okay, so that's good to know.
And then if you want to actually look further, now you can actually deploy a live view where actually you're using the camera technology to stream inside and externally in the cab.
All right,
Now,
and that'll give me the visibility.
what I'm going to show you here is the live view that we have here is going to be a looped video only because we would actually have to have somebody in the cab right now driving, and it's a lot of coordination for all these demos that are going on.
Right. No, that's okay.
But essentially, when you click the live view, it'll give you the in-cab view and the external cab view of the camera. And as you can see, The camera right now captures this driver on her phone and labels it distracted driving, texting, looking at phone, going 72 miles an hour with the speed limit of 65. Right? In the cab, this driver would have been alerted saying, "Hey, put your phone down." Externally, as we're driving by the vehicles, it's measuring the distance between yourself and the cars around you,
Right.
and the relative speed around you. So a pure relative speed difference between yourself and those other vehicles
Right.
is who's going faster, who's going slower.
Right. No, that's amazing. So then clearly this would be kind of a light duty-er application, like in the fleet world or commercial world, kind of the pickup and delivery. You could get that pretty good on just in terms of the in-cab camera. You can position that in a kind of a larger truck cab to kind of make sure it's getting the driver right.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
all over here to that position.
Absolutely. If you put it in a bit, you can view the entire cab when it's placed in one of those big rigs.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. So then I just want to make sure up here in the street view camera real time. So then all the little boxes you're putting around the vehicles as you go by, that's the system identifying the vehicles, right? Are you able to kind of how much does the system itself understand what that vehicle is and what its behavior, what it's doing right in that moment?
So
How granular can you get?
so right now the camera is analyzing all this stuff in real time and putting up the distances and measuring it. It doesn't care what the object is. It just knows it's an object that it can impact you.
Okay.
What
Okay.
it does do also is, as it's reading the distances and where it's at and relative to where you're headed or where you're located, is if a driver cuts you off, it'll also read that and say, "Hey, uh, following too close, third party fault," meaning that the driver cut you off. Now, if you as the driver, once you're cut off, let's say you let your foot off the accelerator and create that distance for you, it'll
Mhm.
actually say safe maneuver, driver created distance between yourself and the third party driver.
Okay. Okay. Well, even then, even in a lot of today's trucks too, they have the adaptive cruise, which should back off. You know what I mean? Which should
Hmm.
also back off there. I see some of the like the color changing when it's identifying like the vehicle ahead of it. It's yellow, then it goes
Yes.
green. Is that based on distance, or is that just kind of a yeah? There,
No, it's
that
based
kind
on
of
distance, and
okay.
so if you look at the little numbers, then it's the time between yourself and that
I see.
vehicle and impact.
Ooh, okay.
So right now, if this vehicle was in front of you and it's less than 5 or less than 0.6 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
it would the box would be red and there'd be
Okay.
alarms and notifications going off in the vehicle, basically making you aware you're about to have an impact.
Okay. 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 Very cool. So in terms of, you had mentioned the kind of the snapshot, so you can kind of look at the camera tab to
Mhm.
see where the vehicles are. You have this streaming. What's the plan for enabling? Are there different plans for how much data I'm using? Can I get a real time look at any vehicle at any time? Is it alert based? How does that work?
It's two different things. So we'll give you the option to add the ability to stream anytime you want, and the streams will be limited. It's like a 5 minute stream per request. Or actually, yeah, sorry, it'll be a 1 minute video stream per request. You can have as many requests as you want. There'll be an allotted amount of requests that you can make. After that, it's up to you if you want to pay the overage of data. But the streams are 1 minute in length, and you can request them as as you see fit. Everything else is part of the camera data plan, and that's all event based.
Right.
So anytime we have a severe event, the video is automatically cut and sent out to the cloud and made available on the platform. We also give you the ability to go back and request footage within a specific time frame. So in the camera, you can store up to 80 to 100 hours of video footage. And let's say the vehicle's in a parking lot, somebody backed up into you, and maybe the camera, maybe the impact wasn't strong enough for the camera to detect it was an impact, but it's enough to do some damage. And the driver says, that bumper was hit in the parking lot. I don't know what to do. Well, the fleet manager can say, okay, about what time were you, or what location was that truck in when it happened, and go back go back in time and make that request for that video and pull it right off.
The event-based plan makes a lot of sense, and clearly that's the power of it. How much interest do you have in fleets of like the full access? Give me a give me a request whenever I want it. Are they interested in that, or no one's sitting around just kind of watching videos? They're waiting for alerts.
It's funny because most fleets think they want the streaming option,
Right.
and they'll sit there for a week to do that, and then after that they're over it. They don't want to be sitting in a free. Who wants to monitor a video 24/7 of 1,000 trucks? Everybody thinks they want it until they get it, and then they say, "Never mind. Just tell me when something went wrong, and I'll go look at that."
Right. No, and I kind of I was thinking that as well because it and the fun part, like it's so cool. I want to see it all the time. I want to be able to go, oh, this is fun, this is fun. But yeah, then once the daily workflow starts going, it's like, well, I can't just sit here and look at this.
Yeah, exactly. And the other piece is, while you have all this access on your web platform, all this data is also available on the app. So as we look here, the power of the camera technology, right? You can see this is a dual cam, not a quad cam. The driver is driving down the road. It's looking at it. As you see the little red square on the stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
Says, and then it tells you rolling stop sign detection, and driver didn't make a full stop. It just rolled right through it. So that created an event of rolling stop, which automatically sends it back into the system saying there's a violation here.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it'll do that with speeding. It'll do that with rolling stops. It'll do that with U-turn violations. And it'll do that for different other reasons, such as measuring distance or impact detection, things like that.
Right. The one of the earlier questions that I wanted to follow up on in terms of the road sign detection is like how robust is that sign recognition? Are there any, what does it recognize or what does it not recognize?
It recognizes at the moment it recognizes illegal U-turn. So if you have a sign up that says no U-turn and you make a U-turn, it'll recognize that. It'll read speed limit signs.
Okay.
It'll pick up stop signs. And it reads traffic signals. So it'll read if the light's red, yellow, or green.
Oh, wow.
And determine whether you cross that intersection at the appropriate time.
Okay. All right, weird AI question for you, right? How do you determine like there's like that yellow point of no return feeling, right? Where like you get into the gas,
it'll get you.
Like, where you're like, yeah, but I mean, sometimes depending, I mean, if I'm looking at traffic, sometimes it's like, okay, I can do this, but if I have a guy right behind me and I hit my brakes, now granted it would be his fault, but what is the safer, like in those like weird kind of in the spur of the moment call things, what do you do in terms of alerts?
So it'll catch it. It'll catch it as a not a severe alert. It'll make it a moderate, and it'll say vehicle crossed on a yellow.
Okay.
And it'll tell you the seconds between it changing from yellow to red, or the milliseconds.
Oh gosh, okay.
And basically put some context around the event, right? So you crossed it at a yellow, but it wasn't red, and it's there if you want to view it. But I'm not gonna send off all the red flags saying this guy did something really bad.
Right. No, that's interesting though, because even as you're explaining it, I don't know how long lights are. Like, I don't know how long a yellow light. Like, it's a feeling. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting there calculating. Like, I got a second that yellow light. I'm going 35 miles per hour. You know what I mean? It's a weird kind of thing that the machine and the AI understands when it's looking at it. Right? It can get down to that millisecond kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wild. Okay. Very cool.
So some of the other stuff, the other things that we give you is obviously I showed you the real-time accessibility into what the vehicle's doing at the moment, but also the different lenses that we provide you, whether it's trip information or safety information. Now, on the trip information, what we provide there is I'm going to switch to a fleet that I've actually generated data for. I went out and did some driving last night. It is in the trip information. It gives you everything that has occurred in the vehicle itself. So anything from an engine diagnostic standpoint, anything like a geofence barrier crossing, any type of activity that might have happened inside the geofence or outside. On the safety lens, we give you anything like speeding, harsh acceleration, harsh usage details, things like that. So if we look at my camera, or not my camera, my vehicle here, in the last 2 days, between yesterday and today, I generated 40 different types of events within trips. If you look at the little corner here, that tells you that there's activity happening within this trip, and the trip is ignition on to ignition off. So we go down here. In this trip, let me just cover this. It's a 32-minute trip, and it covered 5.32 miles. Within this trip, I generated all these different events. Geofence overtime, which means I spent too long in this particular geofence.
Okay.
Right? I exited the geofence. I did a lot of over revving when I was driving. And then I entered a new geofence. I exited the geofence. And when I exited, I actually didn't spend enough time at this geofence or at this location. So the importance of undertime and overtime at geofence is right from a customer, from a fleet manager's perspective. An undertime alert tells me that you're not spending enough time at this customer's location. So if I have a landscaping company or an HVAC company, maybe I feel that you should spend at least 30 minutes at every customer location when you're servicing it. And if you're spending less than that, that means you're not providing the adequate customer service that I expect you to. Right? You're leaving too soon. Maybe you didn't even get off the vehicle. You just stopped and left and, check the box.
Right.
So this type of information really gives me context around what's going on with my fleet and what my drivers are doing.
Right.
Now, not only do we display this here, but I can subscribe to these alerts so that if the geofence undertime alerts, if they're serious enough for me to track because of a customer service problem, I can be notified whether it's through the platform, through text, or through email. All these other flags are automatically raised in real time. And if you switch over to the safety lens, as you look down here, all the different safety violations that I triggered while I was in this trip, I got a few speeding, I got some harsh acceleration, and all of them are located on the map exactly where they happened. If I want more contextual detail around them, I can click on the event, click on view details, and it'll automatically give me all the details leading up to the event and then past it. So as I can see here, I can see that max speed here is 37 miles an hour. I was 8 miles over the speed limit, and I did that for over 2 seconds, which means that I was doing this for quite some time. And if I scroll down, we not only give you the position by position detail, which is second by second data. In this graph, we actually we're looking at providing multiple third-party data inputs to make you more aware of what's going on in the environment. So here we combine altitude with speed. Where this comes into play is if altitude is climbing and you're speeding. One, you're speeding uphill.
Right.
Two is you're obviously generating more wear and tear on my equipment, and you're not driving safely.
Right.
Now, if you're going downhill, it might be that the just gravity is taking you down, and maybe you need to control your brakes a little bit better. But this gives you context of what's going on in the environment and at that moment in time.
Yeah. Also, maybe for fuel usage, right? If you're
Exactly.
going much over, you're burning way through too much fuel. So altitude is a cool example. One, do you have any others that you're working on or that you have an interest in providing?
There are other things that we're working on, like TPMS, so bringing in tire pressure and all these other elements, right?
Oh wow, okay, big one.
And again, as we start looking at furthering the data, the data we're capturing from the actual engine or the ECM, we'll start bringing in things like over revving and maybe being in the incorrect gear when you're looking at rigs and things like that, and really combining the context around what's really going on with the engine, the vehicle, and the driver, along with all the information that is triggered within the trips and the safety, is all the different activities that are happening within these specific trips. So, for example, if you're going to go service a customer or it's a pickup and delivery, we also give you the ability to create and formulate your own customized forms to recreate your own bills of lading or your own invoices or proof of delivery. All those come with the ability to either be able to ingest a picture of something, so you can take a picture of evidence of let's say it's a service checklist and you found something wrong with the HVAC or the electrical or whatever. You can take a picture, put it in that for evidence of what the damage was already there before you got there, so it's not something that occurred when you did it, right? Or these forms where you can sign off on everything that's being delivered and give that to the customer and have the customer sign off on it immediately. The driver no longer has to fumble with paperwork anymore.
Right.
All this stuff is now digital.
Well, and then on the fleet manager side, something we've been talking a lot about in all the different segments, right, of the business. You mentioned there's some service applications there. You mentioned just kind of the business and back office kind of uh, uh, service reports, or the actual service they're providing to the customer. Being able to digitize that and bring it into a platform where now you can build a history, tie it to a vehicle. I mean, that has huge potential down the line once everything is all collected and all in one place and all in a line. That's super cool.
Exactly. So then, think about it, right? You now have the ability, you have the ability to not only track on the geofence side, or you can put a geofence around a depot, and you're tracking the undertime and overtime, and all of a sudden for this particular depot, you're always getting hit with overtime alerts. That means that this depot is holding your trucks from receiving the load. They're making you late, right? So then that gives you the ability to go back and renegotiate terms, or go back and say, what's going on? Why are you holding my drivers back? You're making me late. Overall, it puts you in a better position to renegotiate with some of these third-party vendors that are causing your business headaches.
No, and that's a really interesting example, because I recently had the opportunity to test drive a vehicle that had a lot of the telematics stuff on it, and I went through it kind of like this in a demo where all my alerts were hit too, and I was fine. I didn't there weren't too many things, but from a driver's point of view, it was the first time where I really felt like, okay, well, as soon as I see those alerts, I have to then explain to my feet, like I just feel like explaining, like, oh, there's a idle alert here, and I was like, oh yeah, I was doing XYZ, you know what I mean, like even unprompted. So even the driver concerns aside, which are huge, because you need to build that trust with your workforce for sure. But this external example, because if you have a driver saying, well, I was there too long, because that's their fault. That's their fault. One driver saying it, you may be like, is it their fault? But 5 drivers saying it and the proof really helps back that up.
Right. Or you go, we have an example of a garbage disposal company or garbage pickup company, where they go pick up a commercial trash, right? They usually arrive on location, and they try to arrive probably pretty early in the morning. Well, they expect that those bins be either unlocked or available to them to process.
Right.
They get to these locations and the bins are locked. They have no access to them. So they go on with their day and go do their other things. That customer calls and say, hey, you never serviced my location. I still have a full bin. Now you have proof to ability. Not only do you have the camera to be able to show you the proof, you can actually get off with the forms and say, I've serviced this location, locked. Here's a picture of the locked gate. I couldn't get into it. And here, Mr. Customer, here's your proof that we were there. We were on location. We're not lying that we just didn't show up.
Right. No, that transparency is, I mean, clearly you want the confrontational ones, you want to massage a little in terms of your relationships. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's really, really interesting in terms of there and dealing with those service providers and being on that end of being able to support my own operation of I was doing the right thing. Maybe the customer isn't always right?
Exactly. That's exactly it, right? Sometimes, and sometimes you got to bite the bullet and say, you're right, I'm wrong, and go move forward. And sometimes you got to say, no, you know what? There's something going on here. Let's address it, right?
Right. No, and that's an interesting choice too. Do I, in building that external relationship, even generating a report where you're like, nope, we did totally miss that stop. That's on me. That's important too.
And so, in the process of digitizing your operation, also from what the driver has to handle and all the paperwork, I've been in drivers' cabs where their planned route is a stack of paper that they have to kind of go through and figure out what that route's going to be, right? This is all digital. You can do this all automatically on the platform, and the driver has their list of stops already on their tablet. Right. The other piece that this does is because you have digitized forms or checklists that you can actually have the customer sign. Now this speeds up your billing, right? This automatically, you signed here, that sends off. That can then in turn email back the customer the invoice within seconds. And be through our automation platform, we give you the ability to integrate with all your different other business softwares, whether that be SAP or it's Salesforce or whatever that may be, to be able to process these orders and process these invoices and turn around those billing cycles to much shorter timeframes.
Right.
And as we look at our automation platform, we have a couple of already systems that are already available. So we have a system called Ifttt that we've integrated. essentially stands for if then that, if this then that.
Right.
And what this does is it connects different data points or events and interprets that into one particular action. For example, the driver stopped at this location, submitted this form, then that means that stop is complete, that job is complete. I can go bill a customer, things like that. Or a system like Zapier, where it actually at this point now they offer over 2,000 different integrations to different business solutions where we're already plugged in. If you want to connect to something like a timesheet solution or into SAP, you just tell it these are the different data elements that I want out of my telematics device, and this is where those data elements I want those to go here. As my driver logs in, that's proof that they've clocked in. When they logged out, they've clocked out. The
Right.
the total mileage ran by this vehicle, that means that I'm paying this out at this value per mile for this driver. So this thing starts to automate for you without you having to do a whole lot of work, right? It's already the work is already done on the integration side and technical side. All you got to do is tell it what data you want.
Right, right. Because we'll talk a lot about that, because you say integration and it sounds okay, good. That's like I hit a couple buttons and it's done. But the reality is maybe the data isn't in the right form on the fleet end. You got to work really hard between providers to get that data first in a form, make sure it's complete, make sure it's standardized, and then move it into that platform. Like, it can be a really intensive process, but you're already doing it here. So this is super interesting.
Yeah, and then